It's Paul's Picks with Paul Carey. I'm David Schellenberg. Hello, Paul.
Hello, David.
And Paul, who's the lucky man in the middle?
Our friend came all the way from Italy to try his wines with us today.
From Carpineto Winery, Antonio Zaccheo?
Zaccheo, yes.
Zaccheo.
Present, I'm here.
Excellent. And we'll get into your winery, the history of your winery in a moment, but there's nothing worse than having wine sitting on the table without drinking it. So what's the first wine you brought for us to try?
Let's get after it.
Yes.
This one is actually, it's called the Carpineto Chardonnay.
Okay.
Our winery is from Tuscany, and we're known mostly for Sangiovese-based wines. In fact, those are the reds we're going to be trying.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we also make whites, because we also like to have an aperitivo back home.
Yes.
We don't only eat tomato and pasta sauce.
Now, as you're pouring, how old is the winery?
So the winery was founded by our chief winemaker and my father in 1967, in a time when, Tuscany was a very different place than it is today.
Right.
It was a moment in which sharecropping had fallen apart, and people understood that they could, the farmers understood that if they moved down to the city, you could actually have a better life. Less backbreaking to work in the factories, better paid. You get paid every couple of weeks, as opposed to the farming community. It was a tough time in the 60s in Italy.
And you've been making wines ever since. And so, how many different wines have you got?
Well, we actually at Carpineto, because we have 5 estates.
Okay.
We actually make 30 different wines.
Wow.
Okay.
And olive oil, of course. Everybody makes olive oil. Yeah.
Well, that's a different segment entirely.
Yes.
We're not doing olive oil today. So
Well, it's the only sauce we have.
the
So,
sauce?
it's
That's what you
olive
call
oil,
it, sauce?
That's what we have.
Okay, tell us about this Chardonnay. I gotta say, first of all, just
Salute.
Yeah.
Salute.
Oh.
Salute.
Here I'm messing it all up.
So this is a barrel fermented and barrel aged Chardonnay
Yes.
from our Vino Nobile di Montepulciano estate.
Sure.
A vineyard is planted on the bottom of the valley where temperature excursion, good acidity,
Yeah.
and beautiful fresh flavors. Here stone fruit and apple, and it's a very complex wine. So it's barrel, of course, fermented and then barrel aged for about 6 months.
Of course.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think?
I like the style. It's the aromas are multi-layered. So like you mentioned, you get tree fruit, you get pear, you get apple. But there's an unmistakable minerality quality to this wine as well. It almost gives you the sensation of being almost effervescent, because it's such a vibrant acidity, very palate cleansing.
Yep.
But the fruit lingers on the finish. So it's just, and I like the fact, I've never been a big fan of the overuse of oak in wines. Here you really taste the characteristics of the fruit, the terroir. And this is a perfect example of that.
Now, when I put my nose in this glass with a Chardonnay, I expect sort of a honey and something, and I don't get that at all.
Because it is our inspiration, of course, in making this wine is a Burgundian style.
Okay.
And but then in Tuscany we have sunshine, and so it's a Burgundian style, but with a Tuscan character, making a wine that has got, it's got a presence. It's full-bodied.
Yeah.
It's,
You're saying the sun never shines in France?
No, it does, but not consistently.
Okay.
But where we are, we're right in the middle of the Mediterranean, and so we have the best climate for growing grapes, really.
Right.
And trees. The Mediterranean climate is right by us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So we have consistently really good vintages, and you don't feel the woodiness of the wine, because it is barrel fermented and barrel aged in barrels that are not brand new. As our chief winemaker says, Caterina, she's a woman that just turned 40 years old.
Yes.
She always says, we're not in the lumber business. We're in the fruit business.
Very
and
true.
It needs to show
Very
in the
true.
glass.
Yes.
Right?
So barrels get better as you use them?
No, well, they release less flavor. So they still do the
less flavor.
Yes. So they still have the main function, which is to let the wine microoxygenate.
Yeah.
So basically mature very slowly. But in a brand new barrel, the wine will absorb the flavor of that barrel.
Yes.
In a barrel that has been use for say 3, 4, 5 times, then it becomes much more delicate.
Right.
And so it's not as invasive.
Sure.
It's like in this wine. It is a supporting actor, not the main, the main star of the glass of wine.
I think, Dave, what you're getting when we're talking about sweetness is a lot of the New World style wines will use brand new American oak barrels, right? And when they're using that and they let the wines age for a long period of time in that new barrel, the wine imparts the characteristics of the vanilla and the toffee and all that, and it tends to mask a lot of the ripe fruit that we're getting out of this one. So if you take, for example, we were talking about Burgundy. To me, this would be a perfect example. If you took a Chablis and married it with a Montrachet, you would end up with a wine like this.
That's exactly right. Because it's got that acidity, from that cool climate and from where it comes from.
Right.
Yet it's got, the benefit of the sunshine.
Yeah.
Because we are in Tuscany.
Yeah. So what do you do with your old barrels then? Are they a big campfire?
Well, one thing we can do with them, we can cut them in half and make tomato planters.
Okay.
Or flower pots.
Yeah.
Or another thing we do is we clean them up really well. And then we have a guy that during the winter when it rains, he sits in the back of the barn and paints Carpineto on it.
There you go.
Then we send it to our customers around the world.
Oh, there you go.
So, but we don't have that many new barrels. Maybe 100 a year, a couple hundred a year. So it takes a good month of rain, and he's got it all taken care of.
So with this Chardonnay, what kind of food do you normally have this with?
Well, in Italy, this is great with a salad.
Right.
But also with a carpaccio, mozzarella and tomato, a caprese.
Wait, which is what we have here, yes?
Yeah. So I would go with the white cheese there. That seems like a brie, for example.
Okay.
That would go well with a wine like this. But here in Canada, for example, where you have access to great scallops.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yes, I would a nice pan-fried scallop.
Yeah.
And this on the side to go along with it.
Maybe a beurre
I'm
blanc.
wrecking your cheese.
Beurre blanc sauce on
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. So, it's a rich dish.
Yes.
So it needs a rich wine that has also the acidity, though, to cut through.
Well, we have a lot of freshwater fish here that this would be fantastic
Yeah.
with trout, pike,
Yeah.
that type of thing. Would be phenomenal with this
but even
wine.
halibut maybe or.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A meteor fish like that too. Sure, it would handle it very well.
It really changes the taste of the wine.
Yeah.
It makes it more lemon.
Yeah.
This
And
particular
More
it's a
citrus
good
fruit.
match.
more citrus.
It's a
Yes.
good match.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot with old world wines that the food pairing dramatically changes the flavor?
Well, so in Italy, essentially, that's how we have traditionally drank wine, always at the dinner table.
Right.
We have really don't have the tradition so much of drinking wine outside of the table, except for perhaps when you're having an aperitivo. Then you'll have a glass of perhaps something like this.
Yes.
But right now, Prosecco, for example, is very popular. And then you'll have that by itself or with a couple of nuts or a slice of salami like that. But yeah.
Well, what do you drink when you're watching the hockey game?
Well, we don't watch hockey game there.
Football.
We have a ball, a round ball made out of leather that 22 guys chase around the field.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah. So what do you drink when you're watching that game?
Well, maybe some of the other wines are coming.
Oh, okay.
Later on. This wine is well, okay, maybe for an afternoon game. But most of the games, the important ones, they happen after dinner for us.
Okay.
And so the kickoff time is somewhere around 8:45 p.m.
Oh, that's late.
Yeah.
That's late.
That's after dinner. And so then,
What time is dinner?
well, I mean, in Italy, typically we eat at 8, 8 o'clock. Yeah. But, we have different time schedule because, see, if you are running a shop, let's say a wine shop in town, you open at 9 and you close at 1. Then you have lunch at home because you close till 5. And then you open again 4:30, maybe.
Do you have a
5.
nap?
Yeah, you take a nap. You have a nice lunch. You take a nice nap. You open again at 4:30.
Right.
And then you go home at 8:30.
Uh,
And then you're hoping that somebody's at home that made dinner for you. 'Cause otherwise you're eating at 9.
and then you watch the football?
Yeah, and then you watch the football.
Yep.
Yeah, with a glass of wine, but a red wine at that point.
I got to move to Italy. I'm in the wrong spots.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next wine?
The next wine is a special wine. So this wine is it's called Vino Nobile di Montepulciano
Okay.
Riserva. So basically, here,
That's a lot of words in a different. Nope.
Vino Nobile di Montepulciano Riserva is a long word,
Yes.
no doubt. But
What does it mean?
Thank you.
we have to differentiate it from another Montepulciano, because Montepulciano in Italy is both a town, and this comes from the town of Montepulciano in Tuscany, and also a grape, which is the Montepulciano grape from Abruzzo, so on the opposite coast of Italy.
Great.
And so that's the challenge we have in explaining this wine, which is one of, actually was the first, when we started playing around with appellations, this was the first appellation wine in Italy, the first DOC. Forget it was 66 or 67.
What's a DOC?
It's an appellation wine.
Okay.
So it was the first appellation wine we made in Italy, was the Vino Nobile.
Yeah.
And when it became DOCG, see there is a G here on that slide?
Okay.
That's a tax stamp. That basically means that each lot of this wine has been tasted by a panel of experts at the Consorzio of Vino Nobile, and said, yes, this wine is made in the type and style of wine that basically is fit to bear the name of Vino Nobile.
So it would be kind of like the equivalent of the Ontario VQA system, where they would test, an independent panel
Yes.
will test certain wines to see if it conforms to what it should,
Yeah.
coming from a certain region. So the more you move up, the higher your appellation system becomes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so the DOCG is the highest of all of our appellations. And Vino Nobile was the first in Italy,
Yeah.
also for that.
Yeah.
It's a small denomination because it's only 1,200 hectares compared to Brunello, which is 2,400, or Chianti Classico, which is 7,000. So many people may not have heard of this appellation because it's, the critical mass for promoting it is low, but it is very historic.
Right.
Appellation. We've been growing grapes in Montepulciano since Etruscan time. So we got 2,500 years of exercise.
Wow.
2,500 years.
Yes,
Wow.
making these wines. So it's
So you better get it right.
well, we have gotten it right because if you come to when you come to Montepulciano, you will see that first of all it's a hilltop town, and then it sits at 600 meters, and then all the vineyards and the landscape slopes down from there, and it's basically a mosaic of course, vineyards, olive groves, wheat fields, and woods, and the olive groves are there, because there's a reason for them to be there. They've
Right.
they've been selected to be there for centuries
Yeah.
because that's where they do best. And the vineyards, of course, which is the most important thing, even in the antiquity.
Of course, it's the most important thing.
Yeah, because wine is, of course, life.
Yes.
It's happiness,
Well, and
it's
cheese, but yes.
everything. Yes, well, you need to have a couple of things with it. But that's always been put in the best places for, of course, grapes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about your wine. What do you?
So this
what do you get?
one is Sangiovese.
Yes.
90% Sangiovese, locally called Prugnolo Gentile. It's the Sangiovese Grosso clone, which is closely related to the Sangiovese Grosso from Montalcino called Brunello.
Yeah.
It's basically got 10% Canaiolo. And this is actually a wine that has beautiful red fruit flavors on the nose, and also dark fruit. It's quite complex, quite layered, and it's 2018, which is 5 going on 6 years now. So, and it's
Paul,
a baby.
what do you get on this?
Yeah, definitely sort of sour cherry for me. I get blackberry as well. There's a leather characteristic to this wine, dry herb,
Yeah.
the light dry herb to it as well. Again, I like the fact that it's not overpowered by wood by oak. You really taste the terroir, and there's an earthy. I do find there's a bit of an earthy characteristic to this wine. Just beautifully done. The tannins are not astringent at all. They're actually kind of rounding out, but there's a fairly marked acidity, I find. So something with, if you were pairing this wine, tomato-based sauce is something that has that acidity to it. This would be a fantastic wine to serve with it. Yeah.
I find on this, talk about the complexity. Like, do you ever go for a walk in a forest after a rain? And that's sort of what I get.
Yeah.
Like, very, very woody, very
Earthy,
fresh, very.
yeah.
A little bit of porcini mushrooms. It's beginning to develop the porcini mushrooms.
Yeah, that genuine, like, it feels like I'm outdoors and there's a light rain shower has gone over, and it's wonderfully fresh and not much like a red wine.
Yeah, so the complexity to it, again, it really shows off the earthy characteristics of the wine that in a lot of cases, again, not all, but a lot of the New World wine tend to mask overly high in alcohol, too much wood. You don't get the complexity that you would with this wine, which is, and you can see why you drink so much wine with food, because this demands food. It really does.
Yeah. No,
All right, what kind of food does it demand?
So the traditional recipes back home, of course, a tomato-based sauce and pasta is of course welcome, but also wild boar. So this is very good with game. And I actually live on this estate, and my neighbor is a sheep farmer.
Okay.
And so at Easter time, when we do an exchange wine for spring lamb, I can guarantee you, I've tested this many times. It works really well.
With lamb?
With lamb, yes, absolutely. But also a nice pork roast, for example,
Yeah.
here.
Well, and I think about the Canadian meats, like
Bison steak
Yeah.
would be fantastic with this, or even my friends that are hunters around here, and they make bear sausage.
Okay.
And
Bear.
it's bear sausage, and you can taste a lot of the forest that
Yeah,
comes
that
through the
sounds
meat with
exciting.
this
I've
would be
never-
fantastic.
Never tried that. But,
Yeah.
venison for sure, duck, wild
Yeah.
ducks, yeah.
I would see duck.
Duck for sure.
A lot of this. And it's interesting when you were talking about tomato-based
Yeah.
dishes as
Yeah.
sort of the base of a lot of this. I think one of the things we've learned over the years is tomatoes wreck wine. Is that fair to say? And except for
Certain
Italian,
wines.
Italian wines,
Yeah.
where because you've got a lot of tomatoes, you've
Well,
perfected them.
tomatoes basically have a very acidic vein that goes through them. They're an acidic fruit.
Yes.
And so if you have a flabby wine, meaning no acidity, then the wine
Flabby?
disappears. Yes.
That's the word, flabby.
That's the word. And
Okay.
so if you have a wine like that, then that wine will disappear as you're eating your bolognese sauce
Yes.
with tomatoes. But if you have a Sangiovese that has a good acidity, and a good presence in the glass, good complexity, tannins, everything, then it actually complements very well,
Right.
the tomato.
Now we talk about your barrels. What kind of a barrel do you use with this one?
So here we use the large Slavonian oak casks, and they are, because this wine, see, it's a 2018, it's a Riserva, and at Carpineto we are the only winery to only make Riserva.
Okay.
So we don't make a regular, we only make Riserva. Because what falls off this program goes into Dogaiolo,
Okay.
which is a wine that's in the general list here in Canada. But the barrels here are they're 5,000 liters up to 9,500 liters. We always joke that's enough for a good
A
party.
party. That's a big
But you
party.
don't need too many people though, because otherwise,
You don't want to share. No.
no, exactly. But so that's because it spends 3 years there, and
Yes.
so it needs to mature very slowly.
Right.
And then it gets a lot of bottle age. This wine has been in the bottle at least a year. Yeah.
Now, and this one we also did open it a little while
Yes.
earlier before
Yeah.
we drank it. Is that important?
For these kind of wines, yes. What I recommend is that you open the wines. I mean, if you have a decanter, by all means, I would decant. and then contemplate, while you're preparing, okay? And then while the wine is airing, then you can have a glass of Carpineto Chardonnay.
It's a progression.
It's a progression.
It's a progression. Yeah.
And if you don't have a decanter, then I would just open it and take out this much,
Right.
and then just leave it on the counter. But temperature of service temperature is important, because oftentimes we serve wines at room temperature, which is in the summer is too hot.
Oh,
So we need to. It's best to put it in the fridge for 20 minutes.
So like 15 to 20 degrees
I would
ish.
say, because houses are 20 degrees now plus. So if you serve it at 15,
Right.
and then it allows to warm in the.
yeah. So just a little cooler,
Yeah.
not cold, but cool.
No, cold not, because then you don't get the complexity of the wine.
You
Right.
lose the flavors
You
and
lose the
aromas,
flavor
and
profile.
yeah.
And a Vino Noble, you call us? Tell us what
Yes.
that means.
The Vino Nobile, because it is the noble wine of Tuscany, because the landlords in Tuscany throughout our history have always been noble families, and these noble families would, with the use of the sharecroppers, would then farm the land, but
Right.
it was still their wine, So that's why Vino Nobile, the wine of the noble families.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we good enough to drink this? Well, you are.
I think so. But
Well,
no,
we're not.
we're just rednecks,
Yeah, we're just farmers. Yeah, we're working men. We make fun.
Yeah.
But at what point in history was everybody else able to drink this wine?
Well, that happened after the war, when the system of sharecropping fell apart. Then everybody ran into the cities, and in fact that's when we acquired our land in Chianti Classico.
Okay.
So today we have 5 estates, 2 in the Chianti Classico, 1 here in Vino Nobile, 1 in Brunello, 1 on the coast. But in the 1960s, my father, when he was going around looking to buy a piece of dirt, he always tells this story, that for the price of an Alfa Romeo, not a Ferrari, an Alfa Romeo.
Not a Ferrari. Yeah.
No, an Alfa Romeo. Nice Italian car.
Yes.
You could buy 40 hectares with a castle on it.
Wow.
So that was 1965, 1966.
Wow.
Problem is, we only had enough money for a used Fiat. and so we started much smaller, and I grew from there.
And how many countries is your wine in now?
We export to 70 countries around the world.
Wow.
But we've been in Canada, in particular in Ontario, since the early 70s. So we're very proud to be here, because it's a beautiful country.
Excellent. No, I really, this is a fantastic wine. I really, really enjoy it. It's a true example of a quality wine. Love it.
Thank you. And
Love
it's a
it.
wine that's been in the top 100 of Wine Spectator several times.
Right.
This very bottle there.
So is this your soccer football wine yet?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but it depends.
Because you're Nobly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we want to be.
We want to be. You're still a farmer.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you brought us a third wine as well.
Yeah, the third wine is a very special wine, because it is a Brunello di Montalcino. Brunello di Montalcino is probably Italy's most famous wine, because it is just unique, and it's a small production wine, because as I said, there are only 2,400 hectares of Brunello in the entire appellation.
So this is hard to find. This is a higher quality, more expensive.
Yeah, for us here in Ontario, the shipments are anywhere between 200 and 300. Sometimes they buy 20 cases.
So that's not very much for something the size of Ontario. So,
Wow.
this is a true premium wine. $70 a bottle is what it sells for in Ontario. And on the nose already.
That's
Paul,
that's about the average for Brunello, and up in a lot of
Yeah, and up.
cases.
Tell me again, Brunello is that the grape? Is that the region? What's Brunello?
So Brunello is a nickname of the grape there, which is a Sangiovese,
okay.
grosso. Grosso meaning it has a bigger berry. And
So
Brunello-
Sangioveses are everywhere.
Well, Sangiovese is basically a chameleon. It takes on the character of the place on which it is grown. And then over 2,000 years of history, we have selected all the various clones And so we have a clonal diversity which is unique and very important. We have a great genetic pool in Tuscany from which we're making these wines. But this one, the Brunello is actually the nickname of the Sangiovese Grosso.
Okay.
That when it becomes ripe, it becomes Bruno, which means dark. You know, dark.
Bruno means dark?
Means dark. Yeah.
Okay.
Or brown, brownish.
Okay. Yeah. No, Bruno's a common name.
Yeah, it is. But Brunello, it comes from that.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like the Prugnolo Gentile from the previous one, from the Vino Nobile, comes from Prugna, because it has a flavor of ripe prunes.
Right.
So that's why Prugnolo,
Yep.
So these are very historic names, very interesting names.
Yeah.
That have a meaning and have a history.
Paul, what do you get on this one?
Wow.
No, wow is not a.
It's again, there's a lot going on here. I mean, you could go back and forth to this wine, and I have, and every time you go in, there's something else. It goes from dry herb to tobacco, and all of a sudden, you're getting some ripe red fruit, and then you're getting a little bit of black licorice, and it's just multi complex. But I will say that the wine on the palate is a medium to full body in style. It's round. I don't find that the tannins are gripping or astringent. They're there. They're still there, which is showing to me that this wine will age how much longer? 10, 15?
Even 25.
25 years, in the bottle. And yet, as Sangiovese is, as we were talking about, the length, the persistence is warm. The acidity comes back. So you definitely acidic, but not in a bad way.
No.
It's just well integrated with the tannin and the fruit. That's why I say the wine itself is just layered. One after another, after another, after another. So
Do you get pomegranate?
Yeah. There's
It's like a red fruit that I can't quite place. It's not raspberry. It's not cherry.
It could be sour cherry.
Sour
cherries.
cherry. Okay.
I got Christmas cake. Christmas cake, marmalade. There was so much going, and chestnut. I got the
that sort of
chestnut.
From the oak. Because this also spends time in those large oak casks.
Right.
But they're not as big as in Vino Nobile. They are like 30 hectoliters.
Okay.
So smaller. But it still spends 3 years in those large oak casks.
Yep.
Which it needs the time, because the location of this vineyard is at over 500 meters in elevation.
Right.
And with a northern exposure. So it's basically a mountain Brunello, this one. We actually have moss growing onto the vines,
Wow.
which is quite unique for being in the middle of the Mediterranean, as we said.
Now, isn't once upon a time with something like moss like that, you would have sprayed it with a whole bunch of chemicals to.
Well, we would have cultivated away, but now we practice sustainable precision agriculture. Our wineries are all carbon neutral. And we're trying. We're a family-run operation, so we're hoping to leave a better place than we found.
Right.
That's our ambition. And also, the wine is better if it grows into an ecosystem that is better in balance with nature.
I remember reading at one point, and this happened in California, where they were overspraying the vineyards so much to control the pests and pesticide that it was actually killing the ground. So the dirt was dead. It was, and then the sustainability all of a sudden has now become more the norm as far as farming and agriculture goes. You have to go back to that because
it's better for the product and it's better for the world. But also, there is one more thing that happens. For example, what we do in between the rows, we plant cover crops. So
Cover crops.
Yes, a combination of legumes, mostly, that help to fix the nitrogen. Beans, fava beans, peas, and then flowers. Because the beans, they help to fix the nitrogen. The flowers actually help the residing bee population. And so we're actually making our own honey. But you know that fauna, all those animals running around the vineyard sites, basically make it a healthier ecosystem, and keep out the bad pests.
They were using, in a lot of vineyards will use goats and lamb to eat and prune
Right.
the bottom. They'll eat the leaves and stuff, and that's just, again, the sustainability, and of course the manure. And
The manure,
and all that.
the natural fertilizing of the vineyards. But the problem with the goats and the lambs is that they also like the tender shoots.
Okay.
Of the vineyards. And so we have to be careful. They can come in at certain times of the year. Like now, we just finished picking on Saturday, the Brunello vineyard, which incidentally, because it's a mountain Brunello, is the last vineyard to be picked in the entire Brunello appellation, this one.
Right.
But yeah, now they can come in.
Now the goats
And
can come in.
Yeah, they can fertilize.
They can fertilize.
That's good. That's good. That's good also next year. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
The job they're doing. But if they come in during the growing season, especially when the grapes are ripe, you know, then they go to town on that.
As long as they're not drinking the wine. Now let me ask you, we've been talking to a lot of people in the business, and a lot of people have said to us that with the climate change, they've had to really adjust where they're planting, elevation levels, et cetera, et cetera. Are you running into any situations like that, or how is that affecting you, or is it affecting you?
No, it's affecting us for sure, because we're not immune to what happens. So we are changing the way we're doing business. We're evolving. I mean, you have to evolve in any business. And for us, what we're doing is we're changing our canopy management, keeping the fruit zone more covered. Then we are planting, because now not only are we subject to heat waves, we're also subject to spring frosts. And that's something...
Hot and cold.
Yes, that's something that when I was a kid we didn't have.
Okay.
And so what happens is Sangiovese comes out of the gate early, the budding. And so if you put the Sangiovese in, say, on a southerly slope, then it comes out early, and then the frost comes, you're done. You lose the crop, especially if it's in the low areas. So what we're doing is we're putting, for example, Cabernet in the southern facing slopes, and also we're putting Cabernet in the low-laying areas,
right,
where it's more subject to frost. And all the grape varieties that are less subject to frost, we put them, or that come out of the gate later, we put them in the where we used to put Sangiovese.
Okay.
So we're doing, a Chinese checkers game. We're moving stuff around. Only that it takes a generation to do this.
Yeah.
Because, the life of a vineyard is 30 years, 35, 50, I mean...
Replant, start all over again,
Yeah.
So it's interesting when you talk about, 2,000 years, 2,500 years of perfecting these recipes.
Yeah.
And I can see that with the techniques, with legumes and everything else planted in, that's nothing you invented. I'm sure farmers have been doing that forever.
No, for centuries, actually the traditional way of growing grapes was not in linear rows, 2 meters apart, like we're doing now. It was a linear row of vineyards, and you would have olive trees in the middle, and then you would have 20 meters of land, and that would be for wheat, or
wheat.
So it would be a mixed agriculture.
Okay.
So you would actually have grains planted in between, and then you have another row, or maybe it's a double row that would come down, and then you'd have more land for grain. So the intensive agriculture that we have today, all monocultural, vineyard, the way we see it in the pictures in which we grow them, well, that's different. That's an innovation. Because the Etruscans wouldn't do it that way.
No.
They would actually grow them up on trees, the vines.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you'd take a ladder and go get the grapes and...
Take a ladder.
Yeah. So it was, but it was not...
As long as the goat didn't go up the tree first.
Yes.
So with Paul's question on climate change, like are you finding are some of these traditional techniques coming back, or are you just really having to invent new stuff? And this is unprecedented.
These traditional techniques are not practical in today's world.
No.
Because now you have to really focus on one job and do it well.
Right.
And so when you're growing grapes, you're growing grapes. But when you're growing grapes with cover crops and with natural fertilizers and all of that, then you're bringing back the old techniques that basically created back then a naturally very healthy ecosystem. And that is what you want.
Yeah.
Because a healthy ecosystem makes a healthy grape, and that makes a great wine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to find a football game to watch. Get this and get going.
3 football games.
Yeah.
3 football games. Well, we can watch a hockey game and then 2 football games. All right. Antonio, thank you for coming around the world to say hi to us.
Thank you.
Thank you very
for
much.
inviting me.
Fantastic.
Salute.
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 This has been Paul's Picks. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Antonio. And David Shulman.